And y'all can laugh at me. It's fine. I will be your spectacle. I will be your laughing spectacle. You can all laugh at me. It's fine.
Well, you know what? I think we're just going to shut this down because I'm not into all this melodrama and you playing the victim and everything. So this has just gone in a really bad direction. I'm going to talk with your mother and I'm just going to let you head on home and go.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. I've been loving Donald Trump's media strategy lately. I don't know if you pay attention to these things, but we certainly do. He's been doing tons of local media. That's why you haven't seen him on like NBC Nightly News or like doing a CNN town hall. Like, he doesn't do those things actually that much anymore. He does local news hits in key swing states. And he's doing these local media hits, and then he's going and talking to people inside of the conservative ecosystem, making sure his base is all solid, but then going into these local markets really, really smart. And one of the people who's like been a niche commentator to a massive audience has been Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil is one of those guys that like you wouldn't typically see a bunch of presidential candidates like doing interviews with, but hey man, his interview with Dr. Phil dropped last night and it was great. It was just great. Trump tells Dr. Phil evil forces are controlling Biden. But find the lie, right? Find the lie. It's a long form interview. Trump's interviews typically, like his interview with Tim Pool was 15 minutes long. But this was a proper 90-minute interview, and they touched on a lot of ground. But Trump telling the TV psychologist that very evil forces and sick ideologies control Joe Biden. Again, find the lie. Dr. Phil, though, getting a chance to tell Donald Trump about a phenomenon with his audience. Listen.
You have rallied people. I had people in my focus group the other night that said, I have not voted for Trump before. I have not been a Trump fan before, but I have donated to Trump because he has inspired me. I have donated to him and I am voting for him now, and I have not before, but he has inspired me.
Actually, it's been a beautiful thing to watch. Thank you.
So this is one of the more interesting things that Dr. Phil does. I don't know anybody else, actually, any other commentator that could do it. If we had the budget, we'd do it. I mean, right? Like, but Dr. Phil has this live studio audience, and he always has. And he gets the real-time feedback of real-time people in the inside of the audience. And he played his entire interview with Trump, all 90 minutes of it, for this live studio audience, and then asked people their thoughts on it. And the takeaway thoughts were really remarkable here. These people who had only ever seen Trump through the lens of a corporate media camera and narrative, who only ever seen Trump like bent in the public sphere by whatever they wish to smear or slander him with, to walk away with a remarkably different opinion. Watch.
Watching your interview today, I think it actually gave me an interpretation that I've never had of him before, and us not seeing him more, it actually kind of hurts people on judging him. I guess if that's what the media wants to do, then they're doing a very good job at it.
Yeah. You bet. All right.
So she's saying I've been lied to by the media, and I've believed in a caricature of Donald Trump, because nobody has been made a larger villain in arguably world history than Donald Trump, modern world history, that's for certain. And this was the response across the spectrum, actually, at Dr. Phil's show.
I'm swayed, my mindset towards him since I saw the court, when y'all talked about the court hearing and all that. Yes, I don't feel like that was fair for him.
Would you vote for a convicted felon? Asked Dr. Phil. The results here even shocked me.
The question was asked, I would vote for a convicted felon for president of the United States. 91% say yes, and then Keith and a few stragglers say no. So 91% of the people say yes, and I don't know if that's because they think that's kind of a bogus conviction or if they think it's a white-collar conviction or something. That's something we need to drill down more on, but 91% of the people say they would. We'll see.
Most prisoners can't vote.
Right. Well, and you can't vote from prison. But actually, a convicted felon can't vote in Florida unless they're under New York law, which is interesting. Then they can vote in Florida.
So that's pretty strong. 91% said they would vote for a convicted felon. And everybody else had their panties in a bunch without understanding that everybody who founded this nation were criminals, including George Washington and a number of our first presidents. All of them were criminals. All of the founding fathers were felons in their own right, in their era. And many of them died penniless or in prison or were executed. That was the fate of so many of the founding fathers because revolutionary acts require revolutionaries and require people who stand against tyrannical systems and have the bravery to do so. And that bravery actually becomes quite hard to not rally behind when you see people standing up against such a rigged system.
I was just thinking about when they ran the first time together, or the second time, and President Biden won. I have a lot of Republican friends and a lot of Democratic friends. I'm kind of neutral, but they talked about good versus evil. And I thought, well, we're not really in a Disney movie, so I don't understand. You may not like him. I get that. But now, 4 years later, the same people I know that have said these things say, I'm really upset with my 401k. I'm upset when I go to the grocery store, and they're all voting for Trump now. So it's, and on the TikTok thing, I do get on TikTok, and most of the people I have followed off and on, their TikToks have been taken down if they have anything about Trump. And I just think this is bias, and so that doesn't help his case at all. They just see one side.
Yeah. Does that bother you, that they're taking stuff down because it has that in there?
Again, there's no singularly more villainized or attacked man in modern human history than Donald Trump, and it's beginning to backfire. And people are beginning to say, "Wait a second! Like, if you're putting so much energy into hating this man, well, then maybe I should look into it and see, like, why? Because I hate you and the systems that you run, and they're all corrupted." And so maybe if you really don't like Trump that much, maybe that's a good thing, in fact, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. What did Trump have to say in the interview about revenge, about Hillary Clinton, and about the future of the country? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we put together a sample here for you of the great Dr. Phil and Donald Trump sitting down. Have a listen.
I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. Sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done, and I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers, when you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few days ago. Numbers that nobody's ever heard of in politics before. It's a great honor. The people of our country get it. They're very smart. Taken as a whole, I have to say, they're very smart. But it's been an honor being with you. It really has, and I think you'd be very proud of the job we do. As an example, with Hillary Clinton, I'd mention her name, everyone's screaming, thousands and thousands. We just had 107,000 people show up in New Jersey. You saw that. 25,000 people showed up in the South Bronx.
In the South Bronx.
But we had Wildwood, New Jersey. 107,000 people. It was a record. They've never had that. When I mention the name Hillary in the previous to the last election, they said, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. But I would be there, and I'd try to almost quiet them down. They were going crazy. How would it be I win, and I lock Hillary Clinton up? The president's wife, the former president's wife, I locked her up. And how would it be if I took the Secretary of State, she was Secretary of State, and we threw her into a prison someplace? I think it was terrible. And yet now they're trying to do that with me. Think of it. I didn't want to do that. I could have done that pretty easily. She busted up her phones, and she busted up her laptops, and what they did, and they put bleach bit. You know what bleach bit is? It's so expensive nobody uses it because it's an acid and it wipes everything out. Could have done it really easy. Don't forget, she disobeyed a subpoena from the United States Congress, and she broke up all this machinery, all this technology, after she got the subpoena. Think of it. How would it look if I took a president of the United States wife and threw her into a prison? I hated it because I wanted to bring the country together, and I largely did. And I brought it together through success because it was the most successful economy in the history of our country. Okay. Now, the difference is they're trying to do it to me. And maybe you could feel differently about it, but I don't feel differently. Retribution is going to be through success. We're going to make it very successful. We have to bring the country together.
What if when you win this election, you said, enough is enough. Too much is too much. This is a race to the bottom, and it stops here. It stops now. They've made a half a dozen or more major attempts to take you off the playing board, and you just said, it stops now. I am going to rise above this cycle of ugly. I'm not going to play this gotcha retribution game. It stops now. I'll forgive. I'll not ever forget, but I am not going to play this retribution game. I am going to put the American people first, not getting my pound of flesh first. You got to do what you got to do, but I'm going to put this country as the shining city on the hill. I am moving forward. I'm not playing the retribution game. It stops with me, it stops here. What if you took that approach?
I'm okay with that. I am.
What do you say to yourselves when the crowds aren't cheering? When you're home alone, you're riding in the car, you're by yourself. What is the hardest, darkest moment that you can think of in this journey you've been on the last several years?
You have to be very strong. You're fighting off very evil forces, and they're very smart forces. There are people that control Biden, totally true. I think I know who they are largely. But there are people that control him. They're very smart, very energetic. Possibly they're real believers, what their sick ideology is. But you have to be smart, and you have to have confidence. I mean, you have to have a certain confidence. The other thing is, I realize over the years, I've been through a lot. Great and bad. I won the presidency. Everybody said, how are you going to do it? How good is that? It was the most incredible evening, one of the most incredible evenings in the history of the country. Look at the celebration. I mean, it was incredible. But you also go through bad. I also I understand fully that the bad also disappears. In other words, you'll go through bad moments and it disappears. It's sort of funny because I've watched your show a lot over the years. See, I'm not ashamed to say it because some people say, oh, you watch Dr. Phil. Well, your show is a very smart show. And I've watched you ask a question similar to that to some couple or and they break down, they start crying on the show. I said, that's never happening to me. If that happens to me, that's the end of my political career. I think maybe people would like me better. But I'll tell you what, you need strength. You have to have strength. And people don't want to see that. I've watched so many people, you break down people, they don't even know they're being broken down. But it's different.
My question is why? I understand how. I know you got a thick skin. You're not one of those people that's afflicted with the need to be loved by strangers. I get that.
I think that's true.
My question is not how do you do it. My question is why do you do it? Why do you, let's face it. I mean, you're a billionaire. You got a great family. You're a very dedicated father. People may not see this in you a lot because you keep that kind of private. But my question to you is why do you subject yourself to this?
So there's a movement in this country. It's called MAGA. And Biden's always fighting it. We will stop MAGA. MAGA is Make America Great Again. And we were doing, I had an administration that was a tremendous success. Even enemies, we had the greatest economy in history. We had the best job numbers in history. That's why I'm doing so well with the black and Hispanic vote. They had the best job numbers they've ever had. We were doing things that were incredible. And I was going through Russia hoax. I was going through the impeachment stuff, all of that. And, in one way, I jokingly said, somebody said, can you imagine what he could have done? Because I had one of the most successful presidencies, and yet I was constantly fighting off the radical left lunatics. They are deranged. They are. It's like a derangement syndrome.